Season 3, Episode 3, Club Soda and Salt. And I am Susie Essman. And you are?
Jeff Garlin.
And we have special guest again joining us.
I am not Jeff Garlin. I am John Heyman.
John Heyman. John Heyman, who I'm just going to say again, for those who didn't listen last week, John Heyman is one of our consulting producers on Curb. He's an old friend of all of ours, and he was actually in Season 3, Episode 2 and Episode 3. So here we go.
Here we go.
Club Soda and Salt. So Larry comes home, and Cheryl is very obviously...
She's kind of giddy.
Chummy, giddy, laughing it up with her acting partner, Brad. And he's in tennis shorts. They play tennis together, obviously.
Good-looking guy.
Good-looking guy. And you could just feel it. You just
you
feel it.
I thought he was... That's interesting because I just watched it, the episode. I thought he was her tennis instructor and was one of these guys, but I really want to be an actor.
No, he's her instructor, I thought.
Oh,
no, he's not her tennis instructor.
He's her partner?
He's her scene partner.
Oh. Really?
Her acting partner.
Oh, I didn't get that at all. I thought he was the instructor.
You see, Larry's jealous, and he says, I'm going to get a single heterosexual woman to play golf with. He's going to get her back. And Larry says, he's attracted to you. And Cheryl's like, oh, no, he's not. She's being very coy. No, he's not. When she knows that he is. And Larry says, you don't know anything about men, which I think is true. I mean, I think that women are completely oblivious in many ways to how much men constantly think about sex.
Oh, my God. Yes.
But so you don't know anything about men. And then Larry says that he'll play tennis with Cheryl. He doesn't want to play tennis with Cheryl. I think in the beginning of my relationship with Jimmy, I was very clear. I'm not camping. I'm not. Jim talks about this, an old restaurant trick, club soda and table salt, where you pour the club soda on, then you drench it, pour the table salt on, and it will get any stain out. Okay.
Which does work, by the way. As a matter of fact, from that show, I've done that. It worked.
Okay, so we finished the table salt. So Jim does the whole table salt and club soda. And then who walks in saying we need to talk? Chef Randy.
Yep.
Played by...
Yours truly.
John Heyman. And you quit.
I had to quit because
You suck.
couldn't. But no, can I know we talked about this before the show.
Okay.
I am so unhappy about my alleged performance.
Why?
I'll tell that's why you were great.
Well, except I wasn't, because I made the mistake that a lot of actors do when they come on the show. And I had stuff prepared in my head, which, as you know, is the absolute worst thing you can possibly do. Excuse me, is there a cough button?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So Randy comes in and he quits.
And Larry asks,
Randy comes in and says he quits. I suck. And Larry says, is it about the peanuts, about the ketchup? And Randy says no. And then Randy walks out. And then they're fucked. They don't have a chef. And the restaurant is opening in 3 weeks.
I was so excited, by the way, that I was telling people, I didn't say it full of myself, but I said, I acted with Ted Danson. Well, my acting with Ted Danson was, shut up, or something like that when I'm leaving. Because, I was a really big star then.
Yeah, I have a story about that later in this episode.
And also, how come that guy doesn't fucking age? What is going on?
He does look the same now as he did
It's
then.
just really, it's the hair, I guess, mostly.
Well, now it's gray, then it was black. But other than that, he pretty much looks the same.
No, it's kind of like blondish even.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
And then Ted walks in and they tell him that Randy quit. And Ted said, was it a peanut thing? And Jeff and Larry at the same time, no! They get very, very... So it's 3 weeks away. Who's going to be the chef? And Ted comes up with the idea that Josh, who cooks for them at home, is a great cook. And why don't you come over and sample it? And then Larry goes over to see the stain, and it's all better. The stain is gone. Now, the thing about Josh that I thought of in that moment is somebody who's cooking for a family of 4 is very different than a chef. I've worked in restaurants for years. Is very different than a chef in a restaurant. But wait, before we get to that, Larry goes over to see the stain. It's all better. And Jim says the trick is to get to the stain before it dries. Very important. Get to it quickly. Larry and Cheryl are playing tennis. And Larry's talking about getting his parents an apartment on Barrington.
Excuse me, but by the way, Larry much better at tennis than I mean, he looks like he can play tennis.
So now they're playing tennis, and Larry's hitting little balls against the fence. He talks about his mother getting treatment at Cedars, and hopefully then she'll go home.
Hold on.
Then they run into friends of theirs. Larry and Cheryl run into Melanie and Ed, and you feel something's awkward. It doesn't feel right.
It really feels awkward.
Yeah. And then Melanie and Ed leave, and Cheryl realizes they never got them a wedding gift, and it's been over a year. And that they're harboring a grudge because they didn't get a present. And Larry's like, we flew to Chicago. We did this, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Then they're playing tennis, and Cheryl is Monica Selising, grunting. First one that I remembered that used to do that.
Yes.
Right?
Monica Seles.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because there was a lot of attention was paid to it.
Yeah.
No, Cheryl grunting, what does he say to her?
Hey, you're making a disgusting noise. You're throwing me off. Sounds like pigs fucking.
Yeah, and then doesn't he start imitating it?
Yeah. Cut to their home brushing his teeth. Larry's always brushing his teeth, as we know, right, John? Yeah. And Larry starts talking about he found the perfect sock, and Cheryl is completely bored. Then they are talking about Cheryl wants to go to Tony and Tina's wedding. But she's like, the characters mix in with the audience. You're not going to like that. And Larry's, well, I enjoy theater as much as the next guy.
Yeah.
And then Larry's like, why do you want to go? And then Cheryl says, well, because, Brad is in it. She just throws that away. And Larry's very, very suspicious.
It's unusual for our show.
For Cheryl to be that transparent.
Oh, yes, but also for Larry, like we always think this is insane what he's thinking.
But
or
this
like
is
the
not.
plan he had for me yesterday that I carry out with you is crazy.
But this is not. He's right.
He is totally
He does not want him to go.
100%.
And then he's just, you know what, I don't want to go. You and Brad go out and have some beers and the I and the we. And then she does what he does. She starts kissing him and seducing him. That's exactly what he does to her.
Right, which was great.
But then Larry takes off his glasses, getting ready to have a little sex there, and he puts them on the table, and he knocks the cranberry juice, and he runs to get the club soda and salt.
But what's beautiful about this is she is trying to stop him because they need to replace the rug. It's a piece of shit. She doesn't care. She wants to have sex to get her way.
That's right.
And so she is just really upset.
And he comes running back in with a massive amount of paper towels.
Yeah.
And he does the whole routine. And he, tells her, you got to pour this. All right, let's get back to art. Larry finishes the whole club soda and salt routine. He goes back to Cheryl to resume having sex with her. She's done. The window has slammed closed. Cut to Larry and Jeff are at Ted's house for dinner, and they meet Josh, who looks very innocent and young and sweet. Josh being Ted's personal chef. And Josh is very excited to be auditioning for them. And Larry's like, you shouldn't have told him it's an audition. It's not a good idea. And then the three of them are eating. And Larry's clearly not happy with the food.
Right.
He asks for the salt. He sprinkles liberally salt on the food.
Yeah, I thought that's what he was going to go for in the scene, was that he was going to make, more, no pun intended, more of a meal of, he didn't put any salt on this thing, the salt. I thought that's where it was going.
So Larry says, pass the salt. He liberally sprinkles it. And then he turns to you and he says, nice shirt. And the nice shirt is a way of saying, I'm not interested in this food whatsoever.
Right.
Basically, he's not following the food. And then, we're moving on. Okay. And then Ted asks how you like the food. Jeff loved the food. Of course, Larry, makes the face. And Ted says, you walked in here with an attitude. Jeff disagrees with Larry because Jeff says, you weigh like 8 pounds. How do you know anything about food?
Oh, the discussion. Yeah, that's a funny discussion about
thin people, fat people.
Yeah,
who knows more about
food? He knows more, and I'm claiming fat people.
There's a case to be made that thin people know more because fat people will people eat more food, so maybe they know more about it. The other thing that struck me is the set design of this room. There's plates hung up on the walls, and there's a burgundy. We've really changed in that. The set decoration has really changed over the years.
The only house that I actually loved was
our
house. Was the house we lived in the early episodes. I thought that was a cool house.
And then Josh comes out, And, Ted says, and what does Larry say? Too saucy.
Too fucking saucy.
But you know what? I understand his point because I hate when I go to these restaurants that try too hard, you know the chef.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So you just
I'm acknowledging we should stop. I said, okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So Larry says it's too saucy, and you just see Josh's sad face.
No, that guy was great. It was like you had hurt one of his children.
I know.
Or something like that.
And he really took it personally, as it was personal.
Yeah.
And Josh the chef says, I guess dessert is out of the question. And Larry says, no, I'll have dessert. Right. And Jeff, of course, says, yeah, me too. Decaf?
Yeah, decaf. Yeah, you have decaf. I know.
Next, we cut to Cheryl. Cheryl and Larry are driving, and they're going to get a wedding present for Melanie and Ed. And what should we get for a wedding present? And Larry's sitting in the passenger seat, and he doesn't like not driving.
I knew exactly what he meant.
I feel like I don't have a personality in this seat.
Is when I go, yeah, you know what? He's right.
How did you feel me driving you here today, John?
What kind of question?
Did you feel okay as a passenger?
Did you feel safe?
Yeah.
Well, not the safe. It's not the safe.
Because of what I said before. No, if I was in my own car, and aren't they in Larry's car?
Yes.
Being in the
no, they're in Cheryl's car.
Let's keep going.
Okay. So Larry doesn't like not driving. He feels like he doesn't have a personality in the seat. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, you want me to sing or turn on the radio? He doesn't know what to do with himself. And this is, of course, a setup. Cheryl would rather have the radio than hear Larry sing. And we all know Larry sings all day long. He loves to sing. And a tape starts to play. And Larry's like, I thought you only buy CDs. And Cheryl says, a friend loaned it to me, and we know who that friend is going to be. The fact that Larry didn't recognize Al Green was a little odd to me. Cheryl says a friend loaned her this tape, and Larry says, who? And she says, Brad. And then we hear Al Green singing, You Want to Be With Me. So very pointed. And Larry says, this thing gets worse and worse.
Well, nobody keeps literally, you ought to be with me.
Yeah.
You ought to be with me.
Yeah.
And he's right.
Yeah, he's right. Absolutely right. Next, they're in the store, and they don't know what to buy. A nice bowl. They probably have all this stuff. And Cheryl says, why don't we just get an expensive bottle of wine? Larry's immediately, how expensive? Cheryl's 200, 250.
Yeah.
They'll know the difference. They're wine connoisseurs. And so Cheryl goes to get the wine, and Larry prefers to stay in the store browsing.
Well, she's like, no, I'll just stay here. I'm not going to the wine store.
Yeah, just browsing. And then the sales girl, played by Laura Silverman.
So Laura Silverman, Sarah's sister,
comes up and says, how can I help you? And she's rather aggressive. Could we just narrow it down? And Larry says, no.
Yes.
A napkin rings at 10% off, and she starts following him around, and he's just like, I'm not interested in buying anything. He's losing his patience with her. Stop following me. You've never heard of browsers? She says, please leave. And they have an altercation. Then they go to drop the phone, the bottle of wine off, and Cheryl's phone rings, and she's on speakerphone, and it's Brad. And Cheryl says,
Larry's in the car.
The way she said it was questionable, because let's say you call me on the phone and I'm riding with one of my sons, and I would say to you, Susie, I'm with James. You know what I mean?
Right, and that is protocol. You should do
but
that.
You say it much more casually.
Correct.
She
was
did a
very
performance.
pointed.
Yes,
very pointed, and basically saying, well, what Larry says. Then they say they're both going to Tony and Tina's. Are you still looking for a chef? And Brad says his friend Paul is the chef at Alsace, and let's go there after the show. And, and then they hang up, and Larry's just like, Larry's in the car.
Yeah, he says it's so funny.
If you plan on doing any dirty talking, Larry's at dirty talking. I love that phrase, dirty talking. Larry's in the car. And Cheryl says she was just being polite. And then the cop stopped them. The cop stops the car. There's a report from a young lady that you're following her. And then we see Laura Silverman pull up, the sales girl. You're sick, and it's revenge. And when my husband finds out about this, he's going to kill you, and blah, 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 blah. And then they say, well, they're on their way to Melanie and Ed's, and they say, well, maybe we should have called first. No, it's fine. It's whatever. We're in the neighborhood. It's a $300 bottle of wine we establish. And they ring the doorbell, and Melanie says, we can't take it. Which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
After a year.
You can't give a gift after a year.
And they're insulted.
Yeah, they're insulted. It's an afterthought. It's too late. And Larry immediately, you had no problem with the engagement vase or the shower, and then we flew to Chicago. It cost me $5,500. What? So I mean, this thing is ridiculous to me that they won't take it. What does she say to him when
she says all that about he enjoyed it or he wanted to be there, something like that?
Well, she says, "Why did you come then?"
Yeah.
But don't you? I mean, am I alone in this? Is it ridiculous that you can't accept a gift?
People love that Larry attacks these things,
norms,
these rules.
Yeah,
right.
These social norms that we all adhere to. That he says, I do not adhere to this, and they have a fight with. Then we're at Tony and Tina's wedding.
Yes.
And Larry's feeling uncomfortable. He should have worn a sports coat. And Larry says, I'm going to the bathroom. He's going to the bathroom, and Brad is in the bathroom and introduces himself as a Mangelo, like acting like a whole Goomba.
But that's the thing that they do.
Yes, he's in character. And Larry's like, all right, Brad, I know
he's
it's you.
He's
having none of it.
I can't think of anything more annoying than that.
So he's having none of it, but Angelo / Brad starts going into a whole diatribe about, she's going to marry that jerk. Me and Tina have a better understanding. It's all euphemisms for Brad and Cheryl.
For Brad and Cheryl,
it's all euphemisms for Brad and Cheryl. Then that cocksucker Tony, blah, blah, blah. One day, me and Tina's going to end up together. I'll finally slip her the sausage. Ay, veis mia. And then Larry does his Italian.
No, but at that
horrible.
point, he goes, telling him that I know who he is and this bullshit has not worked. And Larry goes into his own Italian thing and says really pointed shit back at him.
Exactly.
In the Italian voice. I love that.
And then we cut to at the restaurant, Alsace, and you're there, and Ted is there, and Jeff just wants to order everything on the menu.
Yeah.
Not surprising. And Cheryl brought the $300 bottle of wine.
I got a toast,
And she's pouring it and telling the story about the gift. And they toast to the Lobes, who is Melanie and Ed, and that's why they have the lovely bottle. And a guy comes over and pushes Larry, and he spills the wine on Cheryl.
It's not a guy, it's her husband.
Whose husband?
Laura Silverman's husband.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Laura Silverman, that's right. Laura Silverman's husband, who's the one who's going to kick his ass.
I was just going to say, she says that earlier, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just wait till my husband.
Right. And Brad gets up to get the club soda and salt, and then we see that it's Laura Silverman's husband. So the wine is on Cheryl. We see Laura Silverman's husband grabbing Larry by the lapels and choking him. And meanwhile, Brad has the club soda and salt all over Cheryl's breast, rubbing Cheryl's breast.
He took Cheryl aside and said, will you mind if we do that? And Cheryl's always game. She's a game. She's like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Let's do it. And then he is really rubbing on her breast.
Yeah.
And you see the shot of Ted Danson and I, we're glued.
In a state of shock.
We're glued.
Yeah.
We're glued to
Riveted.
it. And Larry's getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah. And at the end. And John, we've enjoyed having you here.
And I've had a blast here. John, maybe not a blast.
You're going to come
back. People always
back.
say that. I had a blast like on talk shows.
So John, you're going to come back later on because you're producing season 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah,
oh, okay, sure.
So you're coming back whether you liked it, whether you had a blast or not, you're coming back.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, thank you for listening.
Thanks, John.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
What was I talking about? That's all I want to say.
Okay. Now, Larry
no
and
discussion
Cheryl.
On that topic.
Well, it's true.
Well, it's because we agree.
But you know what you are? You're misassumed. You know, people listening are probably going, what does she think? No, she thinks everyone knows what she's thinking. All right, keep going.
Okay. So
I want to add one other thing. Did you hear what I just said? I have a lifesaver in my mouth.
Okay.
Well, I'm explaining why I sound silly. Ill-fitting and bizarre. Let me just say something, but I forgot what I was saying.
Put a fucking gun to my head.
That was not even worth the time it took.
Yeah.